Hello, and welcome to the lore of Braunhaven. My name is Christopher Wilson. I created Braunhaven, and today we're going to be talking about a very important figure in Braunhaven, the one Maximillian Tasadantilis. And so, Maximilian Tasadantilis should probably be known or heard of. Not, I don't necessarily know known as the everybody knows who he is. Everybody's heard of him. And most of what the characters or anybody that you meet in the Braunhaven campaign setting knows, most of that is um, probably not true. Or there's a grain of truth in everything, but it would be best known that they are tales and myths, and his the story of his life has been grandly embellished. But Maximilian Tasadantilis is known the world over as a great mage. Um, he was born in -700 in the small fishing village of Reef's End, which I have circled here on the map. It is just north of where the Imperial Port later rests, as well as his tower at the mouth of the Great River. And he it was a for all intents and purposes, nothing special happened. But the reality is that the known gods, the Council of 12 Elder Gods, they, after, of course, their I don't want to say meddling, but after they put down the devils during the War of the Heavens, they realized the kind of damage and destruction that they wrought by simply touching the prime material plane. And so they didn't want to come back to the prime plane again, but they had gained a curiosity about the lives of mortals. And so their decision is that they would create what is known as avatars, or in this case, an avatar. And avatars, they are a game mechanic in which, and the way I do it in my games is at character creation. Everybody has a 1 in 6 chance of possibly being an avatar. If you have a large group, you know, I I wouldn't allow more than one player to be an avatar out of an entire party. So, this is you don't have to have avatars in your campaign. It's something that um, can, I guess, add um, a role play element. But avatars, so mechanically speaking, avatars at level 1, you have everybody roll a d6. And if they roll a 1, they have the chance of becoming an avatar. And so, like, my home group is, what, 10 to 12 players. And so the way I would do it, if you have more than one person that rolls a 1, then you basically have a roll-off until you get down to 1, maybe 2, if you have a large group of players that end up with being an avatar. And they gain a +1 to every ability score. At spell casting classes can choose one spell from each level as they progress that they can cast at will. It does not take up a spell slot, and they can choose one type of damage that they are vulnerable to. So, like, maybe they're vulnerable from fire or bludgeoning or cold damage. And when they take that damage, they take double damage from it. And they stop aging when they reach a middle age for their race. But after that, they are effectively immortal. They cannot die through natural means. And so, in negative 700, Maximillian Tasadantilis is born in Reef's End. And there are basically two types of avatars. The 12 elder gods can all come together, and they basically take a spark of their divine essence and put it into a mortal child. Or, um, in other cases, one of the gods might take a spark of their divine essence and put it into the child. Um, there's mechanically speaking, there's no difference between those two. Um, it's more in from a role play aspect of how that particular avatar is viewed by the gods. And then once that avatar is created, the gods more or less can see the world through that child's eyes and get a better theoretically, a better understanding of the mortal world. The other way that the gods can do this, of course, is through demigods, and they don't. Demigods are kind of an accident. They they have had mixed results with demigods. So the idea with demigods, of course, is that the gods go down, and this can happen with the old gods as well. They come down to the prime plane, and they, I guess, theoretically fall in love with a mortal, and the mortal gives birth to a child that is part god. And mechanically, for those, at level 1, they can add +2 to their choice of strength, dexterity, or constitution. And that's on top of their normal racial bonuses. They automatically gain specialization in. So if you're using they gain specialization in one weapon that they're proficient with. So in my games, I use the combat talents for fighters. They would gain the combat talent for weapon specialization, and it doesn't matter if they're a fighter or not. They just automatically gain that. So, like if you're a magic user, you might get weapon specialization with dagger or staff or what have you. And they and that weapon spec. So if let's say that they are a fighter, it doesn't. They get that automatically. So at level 1, they can pick another combat talent. This is a bonus. It doesn't count against their proficiency slots. And they get that would automatically give them a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls with that weapon. And in addition to that, they are given a divine quest. So, and this is really up to the referee, but essentially, probably in their pre-teens, early teens, adolescence, some messenger of the god, perhaps the god themselves, or perhaps in a dream, they are given some divine quest or purpose. Now, there's nothing. It's not. So the quest does act like a Geas spell, but there's nothing to say that the demigod character isn't going to rebel against that. Of course, I mean there's obviously there's cons to the player if they don't follow the quest, but in most cases the character's general feeling on that is, no, F you, Dad, I'm not going to do it. I do what I want. And so demigods do age, but they age at half the rate of normal mortals. So, a 25-year-old's going to essentially look like they're 12 to 13 years old. No, that starts to take effect in their late teens, early 20s. So a 40-year-old is going to look 20. 50-year-old will look 25. Hey, there could be worse things, right? The demigods were have had mixed results because of the fact that they don't want to do the quest, or um, they demigods seem to get a big head. And when I say that it's mixed results, in some cases there have been minor successes, but when the failures came about, the failures were huge. And of course, this is a story for another time. But one of the most famous demigods, of course, is known as the Drowned Child, and and that is still having, and this happened in ages past, but that is still having repercussions to the current age. And so, in the form of cults, and yeah, the Drowned Child's unpleasant. So back to Tasadantilis. He is an avatar of all of the 12 Council of 12 gods. He was born in negative 700 in Reef's End, and they say that tales say that everybody automatically knew that he was going to be important. His mother, the midwife. There was a diary journal of the midwife that helped with the birth. That there were lightning clashes and a grand thunderstorm, and there was a storm at sea that caused waves to crash that happened right as he was being born. Nobody knows if that is necessarily true. I mean, they do have her diary that they read the excerpts from, but nobody knows, how much is she exaggerating. Negative 700, that was a long time ago. The current year is assumed to be like 200, 201. So this was this was a grip ago. But his mother tried to raise him as a normal child, and that she had a tough time doing that because he excelled in academics. He had taught himself to read by the age of 3, and by 8 he had already mastered, um, you know, several cantrips and even first level magic user spells. In his, and he just voraciously devoured any knowledge that he could get his hands on, especially arcane knowledge. In his teen years, and this is like early teen years, 13, 14 years old, he decided that he didn't want to be in this 10 fish town, and he opted to leave, and he wanted to see the greater world. He wanted to see all of the things that he had read about, and so he packed up and he left. And he, at that age, he became an adventurer, more or less. He wanted to see the unseen. He wanted to know the unknowable, is how he put it. And this was really the time period of when these fantastic tales that everybody tells of Tasadantilis comes about. They say he fought a dragon single-handedly in some cases. He um, he married a Fey queen. Just this is these ridiculous tales. And like I said, in every one of those tales that are sung by bards in taverns and inns across the world, there is a grain of truth in there. There's something about it that did happen, probably not to the exaggerated extent that they tell. And so he traveled across the world. What is what is known is that at some point he did form an adventuring party, and he formed this adventuring party with some major players in the Glossian Empire at the time. One of those people was Relivar Braun, and Relivar Braun later becomes the or a duke, and is awarded a title of nobility. and builds Castle Braun over here in the right there, and kind of at that point is ruling over the town of Braunhaven and kind of that midway point. Another person was Nothrim'Ston, who is of Clanston of the Dwarven Kingdom, with their capital city in Zlatoheim. And Nothrim'Ston is the first cousin of the current modern, current age king, Cathrim'Ston. And Nothrim, later becomes important because um, he goes off and he founds a what was originally slated to become a sister city to Zlatoheim, um, and it was the mine of Drothamstone, the lost mine of Drothamstone, and that is another story. And so, the fourth member of this party, and there were four of them, was this mysterious and kind of laconic mage named Vuslax. And nobody knew at that time who Vuslax really was. We know that because we've already gone over the 12 older gods, and Vuslax was originally the ruler of the Stygian layer, and he got of hell and got kicked out when one of the other gods took over. See previous episode on the gods. So they traveled for quite some time, and of course, as they traveled, um, you know, they started to have more. The party as a whole started to have more and more doubts about Vuslax, because he is an archdevil, and even in their ability to disguise, devils have a much easier ability to disguise their true intentions and meanings than demons do. Of course, demons are just you know batshit crazy from the get, but devils, at least for a short period of time, can appear to be kind and good and whatnot, but over time, their true nature starts to crack through that veneer, and this is what was happening with Vuslax. And it got to a point finally towards the end of their adventuring career that Tasadantilis realized that that it was really going to end up that Vuslax was going to end up being a nemesis of his, and he could foresee that there was going to be some climactic battle between the two of them. And so, in negative 653, he came back to the mouth of the Great River, kind of returning to his home region, and he built his tower. And the tower is kind of an oddity in and of itself. Like it's like a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside, but and part of that tower, the innermost sanctum. It is said, and nobody has been inside the tower, obviously, from the modern age, but it is said that there are doors that lead nowhere, or you'll open a door and it's just a blank wall. There are stairs that stop and don't go anywhere. And there are others who say that there are teleport gates or teleport circles that, if you don't know what the correct key is, it could randomly send you all around the tower. So you never know, without those keys, you don't know where it is that you're going to end up. And you can easily split a party, kind of thing. So he builds his tower, and in the inner sanctum of this tower, he builds a gate to an extra dimensional space, and the gate is a large statue of has a large statue of Anubis, and the gate is between Anubis's legs, or the calves of his legs. And it is said that that he knew that this climactic battle of Vuslex was coming, so the part of this statue of Anubis is Anubis's arms are crossed, and he is holding these two scepters. There is a hooked scepter and there's a looped scepter, and he took those scepters and he gave one to Relivar Braun and he gave one to Nothrim'Ston, and he told both of them, he said, you need to hide these, and he left the gate open, and he said, you need to hide these, and if something happens to me, uh, this is how you can get me back out. Well, the climactic battle against Vuslex did happen, and um, it, and even so, at this point, Tasadantilis, even with all of his power, being an avatar, he still didn't know that Vuslex was an archdevil. He had assumed that he was just a chaotic, um, bad guys, magic user, and during this climactic battle, Vuslex allowed his full visage to be known, and even as powerful as Tacidantilus is, it scared the crap out of him, and so he dove into the portal. And of course, diving into the portal and the keys not being present, it slammed shut behind him, and so he was lost in this extra dimensional space, and nobody knows. This was ages and ages and ages ago. So that's kind of where he is at this point. But so in negative 653, he built his tower, and in negative, this is of course before he steps into the portal. In negative 600, he decides, thinking ahead. He's a forward thinker. He goes to Glaushine and has a meeting with the emperor at the time, and the Glaucian Empire is still pretty new. And he tells the emperor, let's look at the map. This isn't much of a, in air quotes, empire. If you're going to be an empire, you have to be on the world stage. And to be on the world stage, Glaushine and the Glaucian Empire needs to have a port. You need to be able to connect with other parts of the world. And so he convinces the emperor to allow him to oversee the building of the imperial port at the mouth of the Great River. And this is really fortuitous. I mean, the Glaucian Empire, or the capital city of Glaushine, is really built in a inopportune spot, because the closest sea to them is the Frosthelm Sea, and it's they have to go across a glacier in order to get there, and they're a ways away from the Great River as well. But at that time there was a lot more villages and small towns up and down the Great River, and so the having the imperial port at the mouth of the Great River was great, because they could use the Great River itself as a way of trade, as civilizations generally do. And so the emperor thought this was a good idea, and he commissioned the Imperial Tradeway. And really, the Imperial Tradeway was Glaushine's attempt to directly compete with the trade caravans going up and down the Eastern Tradeway, and not necessarily, I guess compete maybe is the wrong word, but at least to siphon off some of that trade. Say, hey, you can sell your stuff over here, because the Eastern Tradeway goes all the way up to Zlatoheim, and really it continues through the Skelos Mountains to Stagina and ends at Olasveller. But the main selling point for the Eastern Tradeway was Zlatoheim, and so they figured, hey, we could tie in with that, and they ran the Imperial Tradeway all the way to the Imperial Port. And in negative 600, he started construction on the Imperial Port, and there again, there's a whole bunch of stories that, like in negative 653, they say, oh, he built his tower in a single day using elemental magics. That's probably not true. And they say the same thing about the Imperial Port, but the Imperial Port ended up being, they claim it was just enormous, and that from day one that this thing had docks that could dock up to what 15 galleon class vessels, and this place was just huge. And that's not necessarily true either. What we really know is that the Imperial Port started as a merchant hub and kind of built out from there over the years through the colonial actions of the Glaucian Empire, etc. But the tales of Tasadantilis are that he just raised it from the ground overnight, and that this thing is enormous. But yeah, so then he kind of disappears, and nobody, of course, Vueslux isn't going to go around advertising, haha, I kicked his ass and sent him into his own extra dimensional space and he's trapped there. Blah, ha, ha. No, Vueslux goes back to his mild and meek manner, and travels around the Glaucian Empire, and that is where Tasadantilis was last seen, was in his tower after this big battle. And of course, we know that Vueslux later becomes so ingrained with the Glaucian Empire that the later emperor um, proclaims him a god. The people view him as the one god, and um, it is mandated throughout the empire that that worship of Vueslux is the mandated religion of the Glaucian Empire, and they don't persecute the clerics and acolytes and paladins of the 12 known gods quite so much. They It really depends. They kind of have a bee in their butt for the Order of the Martyr, but for the most part, the witch hunters of the Glaucian Empire are frequently sent out to really mess with the druids and witches. Um, they they will essentially burn those guys at the stake. But so yeah, the story of Tasadantilis and Vueslux is really intertwined, and Vueslux, clear to the current age, um, is still searching. He knows what Vueslux knows is that he kicked Tasadantilis into this portal. He may not know even that Tasadantilis is an avatar. I haven't decided that yet. But of course, he wants proof of death, and so he has been searching for hundreds of years for how to get into this extra dimensional space, and he has failed at every turn. He has not been able to find the keys. Uh, he's not been able to crack the code. Um, he he just has not had any success with that. And so that is the story of Tasadantilis, and really his inclusion in the construction of the Imperial Port and his tower. Next time, we're going to talk about the construction of the Braunhaven coaching inn and the rise of the small town of Braunhaven, and how that leads into the Braun family kind of their meteoric rise through the ranks of politics and nobility, and their sudden and inevitable fall off the cliff to ruin. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.